So welcome to the Edexcel Higher. It's the International, the GCSE. As you can see, it's the January 19 paper and it's paper 1H. So let's go. So first off, factorise fully. All right, so not just numbers coming out, but letters as well. Do numbers first. So they're both in the 2 times table. The largest factor is 2. 2 times 2 would give me 2p. 2 times 3 would give me the second term. They both have a p in common. Just about left enough room, and that means 2p times 2 done. Need the plus. 2p times, well, there's a q missing, so that needs to go in there as well. Next, expand the brackets, use loops if you want, simplify afterwards or during. I'm going to go for during. So beginners is e squared, enders is minus 15, and the e terms positive 3. Then we've got negative 5, so overall negative 2e. Question C, solve. It's a strange looking one, but at the end of the day, whatever makes it look weird, get rid of it. So multiply both sides by 5. That will get rid of it on the right hand side. And now it's just a case of isolating the y's, get them on the same side, subtract 2y from both sides. And you get the unusual, but it happens, answer of a third. As always with diagram ones, I've cheated, I've drawn it already, so I can spend more time explaining than drawing. So A, describe fully. So as with all wordy questions, I always put the full answer on my worked answers, so go and check the website out for that. Here I'll just talk through it. So to go from A to B, I like to do arrows because then you get it the right way round. That's a quarter turn. So in other words, it's a rotation, 90 degrees anti-clockwise. You just need to find the centre. Now you could ask for some tracing paper and do a little bit of trial and error, but at the end of the day, you will zoom in. It's around that point there. All right. Reason why you can, if you do a little counting exercise, up 2, right 4, left 2, up 4, that's the rotation you are after. So 90 degrees anti-clockwise, centre, minus 2, 3. As you can see, worth spending 3 or 4 minutes on. So don't rush that question. Easy. Get the tracing paper if you need it. Nice. Vectors. I always like to write it down. Top number means right and left. So it's right 2 because it's positive. It's down 5 because it's negative. So you do it one at a time. You could do all 3, or once you've done 1. So 1, 2 along, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. You could then fill in the rest or do it one by one. But make sure when you count, you do the correct corresponding. You don't start drawing the shape from a different vertex. But 4 nice marks take 5 minutes. You don't want to lose marks on that or this. Again, I've cheated, but it's scale factor a half. I always prefer to do it by counting first. So from the centre, it's right 4, up 2, you halve it. So right 2, up 1. So I like to do it by counting, so do it corner by corner, do each vertex in turn. Then you can use the rays, which I'm sure you've been nagged about. You can use them as a way of checking, and they should all line up. So I prefer to use the rays as a backup plan, as the way of checking, not as the way to go about it. But it's all, if you get the right answer, who cares? Number 3. So you could do this one by trial and error. It's very waffly, but the main bit of information you care about is that the sum of probabilities is 1. So you need to add up all them, and you're told, so I've gone about this the algebra way. You're told that when the spinner lands on brown, it's 0.06 more than yellow. So we don't know yellow, we don't know brown, but we know we can write 0.06. So that entire line should add up to 1. So write it out. 2x plus all that nonsense, I can't be bothered, you can't bother listening to me, should equal 1. It's actually all turns out to be 0.8. So when you take away the 0.8 from both sides, you get 0.2. So the value of x, which is the probability of a yellow, is a tenth, or 0.1. Don't congratulate yourself too soon, you haven't finished. Spinner is spun 150 times. How many times would you estimate you get a yellow? You just times them. 150 times 0.1, you've got a 15 for a nice 4 marker. And obviously the algebra you could have done by trial and error or whatever, who cares, as long as you got there. But the algebra way, as you know, will work for much harder questions if it's not as guessable. So number 4, we've got percentage increase. So percentage increase, whatever you call it, there's various names for it. It means actual increase, which you find by subtracting the numbers. That gives you the actual increase. You divide it by the original amount, so that's the 1st of Feb, multiply it by 100, and I get 9.7647, and so on. You're told 3 sig figs, so do as you're told. 9.76. Next one, just a straightforward. It's not a reverse percentage, as you might be expecting that after part A, but it's not. It's straightforward. The price of gold increases by 19%. It was originally, as you can see, 1st of February was 1126.5. What is it on the 1st of July? So 1340.535, yada, nearest dollar, $1,340. Number 5. So key thing here, give reasons. All right, don't just, people always assume and go, oh, it was obvious. No. All right, so start off. It wants to show their parallel. So the assumption you cannot start with is that they add up to 180. That's where you need to end up. Because when they add up to 180, you can refer to them as co-interior angles. But that can't be your starting point. Your starting point has to be, these are straight lines. Straight lines sum to 180. And I have done this properly again on my worked answers on my website. Here, I'm just explaining how to go about it. So the starting point needs to be up here. That those two things added together, so 4x and 15 and 30x minus 5, they're the ones that make 180. That's where you can start. Off we go. Simplify the x's and add 5 to both sides. Subtract 15 from both sides. 170. Grab your calc or feel superior at mental arithmetic. 170 divided by 34 is a nice 5. Now what that tells you is And you should be given reasons. It's a 5-mark question, this. Write plenty. So, angle BCF. The expression you've been given is 4x plus 15. So 4 lots of x plus 15, we get 35. Angle AFC is 20 lots of x plus 45. That gives us 145. That's where you need to finish, because it says show that the two straight lines are parallel because these two angles sum to 180. You have co-interior angles, hence those two lines are parallel. As I say, I'm afraid you've got to write that out in full. It's a 5-marker. Take your time. 6-7 minutes is fine. More if you need to. Number 6, I'm rubbish with my electronic pen. So, if you're going to sub in, always look for symmetry. You don't actually need to substitute in. It's an x squared graph, so ignore the fact I've already drawn it. It's going to look like that. They are symmetrical, but not only are they symmetrical, the table should be as well. And there you go. 0, 0, 2, 2, 6, 6. Get them all plotted, one at a time, and draw it with a nice, smooth, freehand curve. I always prefer to do it lightly first. Yeah, mine's got a little kink in it. You can see a little bit of wobble there. Trust me, examiners don't care. As long as you don't miss the coordinates by more than a square, try and get it right. Practice makes perfect. Your first one, sometimes a little dodgy, but give it a good go. Now, just going to scroll down. This is going to disappear, but let's always consider, why did I draw this straight line on? Well, let's just compare the graph we've got drawn is x squared minus 5x plus 6. And the graph, what we're trying to sort out is this here. Now, you can't draw the graph of x squared minus 5x. That'll give you another graph. It'll be same sort of shape and size, different place. It doesn't say draw a new quadratic. It wants you to use the old quadratic. So the question is, what's different? So the x squared, that's the same. The minus 5x, that's the same. This x on the right, that's the line we're needing to draw. But look what's happened. They've stuck a minus 7 on, and that's disappeared. So let's take that away, but it's still not quite right. They want us to solve x minus 7, not x minus 6. So we need to subtract. If we just get rid of all that, the difference is we need to subtract another 1. And so the graph you need to draw is y equals x minus 1. So either draw your own table of values or do y equals mx plus c. The intercept is -1, that's why I put a cross there. And for every 1 unit across, we go up 1, which happens to be slightly strange scale on this one. It means you have to go right 2 blocks, or 10 little squares up 5. But there you go. I just did a little table of values, 5, 4. I plotted up there. But you haven't finished yet, because it wants you to find out where do they cross. what are the exact answers, and I got very close to 4.4 and very close to 1.6, and they are the exact answers on the mark scheme. They haven't really given up and down how much you're allowed. The mark scheme just says allow follow through from your graph. So if your graph is wobbly, draw your lines on. That's your method, and it counts as your follow through marks. So even if you've messed up the graph, you'll still pick stuff up. Number 7, standard form for me. Write that as an ordinary number. It's a big positive, so move your 718 to the left. If you want to draw loops, to make sure you move the decimal point 7 times. In other words, you've times it by 10 7 times. You should have 5 zeros on there. Job done. Calculate the total volume. So obviously first job is get onto your calculator and add them all up. It did it for me. It was already in standard form. Very easy, 2 marks in my opinion. 6.646 times 10 to the power of 8. And it says the volume of South China Sea, so you've got to work backwards. So again, it's a large number, so it's going to be a positive power. 9.88 is the number we're wanting. They are terrible 8s. And it's in the millions, so it's going to be power of 6. There you go. Or you can do the loops and count it. Number 8. One of those where you don't feel like you've got enough information, but you have. So, the area of the triangle is 12. Now, the key here is area of a triangle is a half base times height. So we can say that 12 is equal to a half of the base. Now, the base is the whole thing, the 5, multiplied by the height. Bosh, you've got the height. Height equals 4.8. That goes on there. Now it says work out the perimeter. So in other words, we need to find x, double it, and add 5. So how do we find x? Well, using that 4.5, halving the 5 to get 2.5, you'll notice that x is on the hypotenuse of a right-angled triangle. So off we go. X is the square root of these two sides squared and added. On your calc, and I get 5.412-ish. And like I said, don't congratulate yourselves, it wants the perimeter. So that's x, which is there. You need to double it and add on 5. And don't forget to do as you're told. 3 significant figures. I get 15.8. Next. So pretty bog standard cumulative frequency. Add them up as you go along. Do use a calc because your brain can do daft things. I mean, these are easy numbers, so, and you can double check it adds up to 60. But if the number goes up to like 200, which it does on occasion, use a calc, and sometimes they don't tell you the starting point, so there's no way of double checking. So yeah, use a calc, safety net, it's there for a reason. But we got 60, and obviously I've cheated. I've plotted them all on. As you can see, don't forget, by the way, you plot them at the upper class boundaries, not the middle points. So your first coordinate should be 10 along, 3 up, then 20 along, 19 up, etc. And I wouldn't draw freehand if you've got the choice. It says to draw a graph. It doesn't say curve or anything, so use a ruler, in my opinion. Use your graph. That's why you draw these lines. Show the examiner you're using the graph. Interquartile range is upper quartile, also known as Q3, minus lower quartile, also known as Q1. What did I get? 32 is my reading there. 17 is my reading there. I got 15. Mark scheme allows 13 to 15, so I was at the upper limit, but I don't care. I got it right. Number 10. When you've got some SOHCAHTOA type things looking at you, or whether it's overlapping triangles, or whether it's 3D trigonometry, I do prefer to split them up. Because when they overlap, they are a pain. And it's much tougher to see what's going on. So I'm looking at the smaller triangle here, where that's 20. Right angle's at D. It goes up to C, and we know that's 13. And on the bottom, the bigger triangle, that's A. That's also the right angle at D. That goes up to E. C is somewhere there, but we'll worry about that in a bit. So as you can see, if you're going to work out the angle of BAC, which is that acute angle there, you need to work out why I've written E there. Come on, Al. It's a B. You're going to need to work out angle BAD, that one there, and subtract the 20. So the only way we can work that out is if we know that distance, we then know that distance. So let's work out C to D, which is the opposite. A to D is the adjacent. So this is a TOA, part 1. So C to D, which is the opposite, is going to be tan of the angle multiplied by the adjacent, and I get 4.731. As always, it wants one decimal place, so it's best to work in 2 or 3. That means we can take that forward. We can add 8 onto it. We now have this height here. That's 12.731. And we can move on to phase 2 of this question. We now want this angle here. I'll call it X. We've got the adjacent again. It's 13. We've got the opposite. It's 12.7. It's another tan. This time we want the angle. Don't forget, when you want an angle, it's inverse tan or shift or second function, whatever your calc's got. Opposite over adjacent 13. I get 44.402. Don't forget, as I said during the question, got to minus that 20. Because if we could just refer back, it's the whole thing that's 44. We don't want the whole thing. We have to take away the 20 to give us 24.4 degrees. On we go. Some algebra. Lots of different ways of doing this. I'm going to do it the LCM way. So the lowest possible thing, term, whatever you want to call it, that 3 and 2x both go into is 6x. So what did I multiply the denominator by? 2x. Do the same to the top. Here, what did I multiply the bottom by? 3. Do the same to the top. Come on, Al. Now be careful, by the way. a minus in front of a fraction does mean that it's minus the whole numerator. So when we come to pop it all over 6x, when we come to simplify the numerators, we need to do 10x minus 3x, but then it's also no numbers minus 6. All right, so be careful on that. It's a minus 6 on your answer. On we go. So differentiating means bringing down the power and take one off the power. So bring down the power means take the third, multiply it by 3. You get 1. Then you subtract 1 from the power. X squared, there isn't 1. Minus 9x differentiates to minus 9. Positive 1 differentiates by disappearing. So for a negative gradient, your gradient function would need to be below 0. Difference of 2 squares to factorise. Don't write x equals 3. Remember, minus 3 plus 3, positive. We want, where is this quadratic? Under the axis. It's between our critical values. And ultimately, not a bad question. So for number 13, very wordy Venn diagrams, and there's a little sneaky bit in here, but here we go. So 15, study everything. In it goes. 21, study G and H. So we need a 6 in there to give us that 21. 16 for G and RS. So just a 1 for that. So the intersection there is 16. 30 for geography. So 30 minus 6 minus 15 minus 1 gives us 8 for just geography. 18 only do RS. 37 study religion. So this entire circle for RS is 37. So we take away the numbers we can see. We're left with 3. Now when I said sneaky bit, this is it. Looks like they haven't given you any information for the rest. But there is something right on the top. They must study at least 1. So no students goes out there, and your 65 students must be somewhere in the Venn diagram. So 65, take away all the numbers you can see, leaves you with 14. Bit sneaky that. A student in year 11 who studies both history and RS. So the bit that is history and RS is there. So we are choosing out of those 18 students. The 15 study geography. These 3 don't. Work out the probability that this student doesn't. So it's 3 over 18. Leave it like that, or don't. Cancel it down to a 6 if you want to. Number 14. As soon as you see that top sentence, get writing. T is directly proportional to the cube of R cubed. So your formula is going to look like that. You just need the K. T is 21.76 when R is 4. Let's do 4 cubed to speed it up. Divide both sides by 64. You get 0.34 or 17/50ths. Depends which one you prefer, no one cares which one. And just a 1 marker, not a tough one here. Work out the value of T when R is 6. So sub it in. On your calc, 0.34 multiplied by 6 cubed, sorry, worth the mark, is 73.44. And that's why it's only a mark. Number 15, refer to your formula sheet. All right. One of those again where you feel like you haven't got enough numbers, or it doesn't matter. Just get on with it. Use the formulas, work with R's. Very often, lots of things cancel. So let's take that top sentence. The total surface area of a solid hemisphere. Don't forget what a hemisphere is. It's half a sphere. So, surface area of a hemisphere is 4 pi r squared. But we've only got half of it. So we're going to say 2 pi r squared. Don't forget, there's also the circular base. So we've got to add on pi r squared. And that's our hemisphere, is equal to the curved surface area of a cylinder. The curved surface area of a cylinder is rectangular. All right, and be careful, because all you need to do for this is multiply the height by this distance there, and that distance there is the circumference of the circular top. So let's take that back. It'll be the height times 2 times pi times, let's just be careful for a sec, multiplied by r, which is the radius of the cylinder. But let's just delve into here. The radius of the cylinder is twice the radius of the hemisphere. So we're not going to use r, we're going to use 2r. Now we can start tidying things up a little bit, because we can say they've all got a pi in there. We can get rid of that. And on the left hand side, we've got 2r squared plus r squared. That means we've got 3 of them. On the right hand side, 2 times 2, we've got 4rh. Let's divide both sides by r. And we've now got a relationship between r and h. So you could either write, got choices here, r is 4/3 h. If you want to isolate r, feel free. But I went the route that the height is 3/4 of r. So now I move on to the second phase. Volume of the hemisphere. So, volume of the hemisphere to volume of the cylinder. Doesn't matter how you draw it, although that's quite bad. Let's just improve it a little bit. So let's crack on. The volume, again, refer to your formula page. The volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r squared. We've only got a hemisphere, so we're going to halve it. The volume of a cylinder is pi times its radius squared. Don't forget its radius is 2r, not r, multiplied by its height. Now I'm not going to write h here, because if I did, I'm just going to end up getting rid of it. I'm going to get rid of the h and replace it with 3/4 of r. Now let's do a little bit of tidying up. As you can see, they both have a pi in. Delete. You can also see There's an r squared on the left. There will be an r squared on the right. Delete. Let's just rewrite the left-hand side. What have I got? A half times 4/3. So that'll just be 2/3. And on the right-hand side, again, let's tidy this up. I've got 2 squared. That's 4. Divided by 4. They cancel. So I'm just left with 3 r on the right-hand side. Sorry, folks. My mistake. The formula for the volume of a hemisphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. My apologies. I'm sure someone is writing a letter as we speak. So that means all the r's disappear. Do apologise. So we're left with, on the right-hand side, just the 3. That's our ratio. But it wants a 1 on the left-hand side. So times both sides by 3. Divide both sides by 2. I think 4 marks is a bit stingy for that one, if I do say so myself. Hopefully I explained that clearly. Apologies for that small mistake. Yeah, volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. I'll write that out 100 times at the end. Number 16, rationalising a weird surd, but it is what it is. So we are going to multiply by a plus root 4b all over a plus root 4b. So top times top means I get a squared. Root 4b times root 4b is 4b. And then we'll get a times root 4b plus a times root 4b. In other words, we'll get 2 lots of a root 4b all over. You only need to do a times a, and it'll be minus root 4b root 4b. Now, before you think you're done, notice it does say where a is an integer and b is a prime number, simplify your answer. You haven't quite finished, I'm afraid. Here's the reason. Root 4b is root 4 times b. Sorry, root 4 times root b. So it's 2 root b. So that 2 needs to come out. So to simplify our answer, the top, most of it doesn't simplify, but this bit slightly does. Bring that extra 2 out to give you 4a. The b stays underneath the radical, and the denominator stays like that. What a weird question. So for 16b, slight little thing here, because they've got the minus power and flip the x and y upside down. So just to be careful, power of a half is the same as square rooting. So I would take the minus power, reciprocal. In other words, flip it upside down. And the root is power of a half. Now that's all still to the power of 5. Now that might look a bit more confusing, but it is just explaining what the heck's going on. It is, at the end of the day, only worth a mark. But now you've got it in the form they wanted, x over y, and now you've also got a power to a power. And that means you multiply the powers 5 over 2 or 2.5 for just that 1 mark. Calculate the value of x. It looks reasonably straightforward, not quite. Okay, you do not have an angle and its opposite side, so you do have to start with the cosine rule to find AC. So AC squared equals 4.1 squared plus 5.3 squared minus 2BC times the cos. I'll just squeeze it in, cos of 110. And as always, stick that all in your calculator. I get 59.7-ish when square rooted 7.730. All right, 7.730. On it goes. Why does that help? Why do it? Because we need to find x. X, we know it's opposite to 5.3, so it now becomes a sine rule question. Sine of the angle we're after over its opposite side equals sine of the angle we know over its opposite side. And stick in your calc, sine 110 divided by 7.730 times it by 5.3, you should end up inverse sining 0.644-ish to get 40.1125 and so on. But do as you're told, 3 sig figs, 40.1 degrees. On we go. So number 18, usual cheating for me. I've drawn it in advance. Don't forget, if you multiply just the x, not the entire function, if you multiply just the x by a half, you get a horizontal stretch, scale factor 2. So everything in terms of its horizontal x coordinate, in other words, needs to be doubled. So the x coordinate of this is -2. Double it. That's 4. Double it to 8. That's 3. Double it to 6. That's -1. Yeah, double it to -2. That's on the axis, so it stays there. And its minimum point, that x coordinate is 1, you need to double it to 2. So ultimately, you get the wider bowl shape. All right, but plot those points. Take your time. Next one. Don't have to draw for this one. It's been moved, as you can see. If you compare them, what's happened to the vertex? The vertex has moved from 1 to the right to become 2 to the left. In other words, it's moved left 3. So when it says find the value of k, that means if you've moved it left 3, it'll be x plus k. So you can simply say that k is 3. Because horizontally, the translation is always the opposite way round to what you expect. Flipping heck. Not yet. We're doing functions first. So here's one of those bits of logic. I've written it out in full on my worked answers. The domain of a function is equal to the range of the inverse function. So believe it or not, the answer is as easy as regurgitating that, but with a y. As I say, the input of a function is equal to the output of an inverse function. All right, on we go. Express the inverse function. So rewrite it now. It's a weird one. If you tried to factorize out an x, it doesn't go anywhere. Because you need to have just one x. You can't, you've ended up, you split it. So weirdly, this is not one of them. So this is one of those, you'll either spot it or you don't. But hopefully you might learn something. When you're trying to isolate and get that in the form of x equals, You have to complete the square. Because when you complete the square, the clever thing is we've now only got one x to deal with. And there we go. We can now start to rearrange to make x the subject. Add 9 to both sides, it's gone. Square root both sides, that's gone. And subtract 3 from both sides. We've now rearranged it. As you know, it can't be lower than -3. So -3 taking away something doesn't work. So we actually reject the negative answer. Don't forget though, the final step when you're doing an inverse function is to flip around the x and the y's. That's your inverse function. That's what you need to squeeze down there. I can't be bothered. Hopefully you can. On we go to probability with lots of unknowns, but one bit at a time. Oranges, apples. 2 are taken at random. 4 are oranges. N is the total, so n minus 4 must be apples. This is one of those hidden algebra questions. So, what's the probability? 2 pieces of fruit are going to be taken. Probability, as you can see, it will then contain n minus 6 apples. So it's gone from n minus 4 to n minus 6. So it's given us the prod, not obvious, that we are looking at the probability of apple. Because we have to pick 2 apples to knock the number of apples down to n minus 6. So, probability of getting 1 apple is n minus 4 over all the fruit multiplied by 1 fewer apple over 1 fewer of the fruit. Yes, it's an algebra question, and that's equal to 1/3. So I'm going to expand the tops whilst trebling. So n squared minus 4 times minus 5 is positive 20. Minus 4n minus 5n is minus 9n. And I'm also going to multiply both sides by n minus 1. And to solve this kind of thing, we want it equal to 0. So we're going to subtract n squared from both sides. We're going to add an n to both sides. And it might look tough to factorise, but nope, they're all even. We can halve them. No need for the AC method. It's a nice, I hope, obvious one. It's the old 10 and 3. Both negatives. But n cannot be equal to 3. Can't be an answer because n, 3 minus 4, doesn't make sense. You can't have -1 apples. 3 is not big enough. So n is 10. Next up. So here's the logic, by the way. Let's do a much simpler arithmetic sequence. 6, 8, 10, and so on. 10 minus 8 is equal to 8 minus 6. They're both equal to 2, we know that. But the idea is, when it's an arithmetic sequence, if you subtract consecutive terms, you get the difference. So, if I take the third term, subtract, be careful here, the second term, I get the first term, the second term, sorry, minus the first term. And they're both equal to the difference, but we don't know what the difference is. We're trying to prove it's 12. In other words, people, we're hoping we can find x and then use it to find the terms. So on we go. Let's simplify the left. Got 20x minus 8x. Got minus 52, take away 2. Right hand side, 8x take away 2x. And 2 minus 23. Let's isolate the x's on the left. So take 6x from both sides, adding 54 to both sides. We get x to be 5.5. Nowhere near finishing yet. What we need to do is write down. That means the first term is 2 lots of x plus 23. In other words, 34. The second term, they might say, do I need to show all this working out? Personally, I would, because it's a proof question. Because otherwise you could cheat and just add 12, because we're hoping this ends up as being 46. So, second term is 8 lots of x added to 2. It is indeed 46. And for T3, 20 lots of x. That's 110, isn't it? Take away 52 equals 58. And now you can lay it on a plate. Up by 12. Up by 12. Yep, we agree. The difference is 12. And there we go. Take a deep breath, pat yourself on the back. Hope that helped, particularly with some of the trickier ones. I'll see you on the next one.